Hello! Welcome to our first YouTube yoga channel class. Thank you for joining. Today's class is a stretchy feel-good flow, so it's meant to feel good. We're gonna start on our on child's pose. So coming onto our knees, pressing our sits bones towards our heels. We can keep knees mat width apart or together. So feel free to choose whatever feels best. Letting ourselves land in this space. Taking deep breaths in and out. Feeling as our body expands with the inhale and relaxes with the exhale. Slowly walking our hands towards the right, reaching the left hand as far as possible and still keeping our left sit bone reaching towards the left heel. Today's class, we're going to focus on one of the main principles, I would say, of yoga, which is presence. It's one of the main lessons that we can take off of the mat from yoga. And it's bringing our mind and body to the same time and place. It's very easy to say, it's harder to do, because it's very easy to try to focus on getting a pose or rushing through the class. Slowly, we're going to lift our torso slightly and walk our hands towards the left. Reaching the right hand as far as we can. So we're going to practice 3 tips to really practice presence throughout the class. The first one is to set an intention. This gives the class purpose. Therefore, a reminder to move with that intention, that purpose throughout the class. Slowly walking our hands back through center. Either staying here or we can bend our elbows, making like a prayer pose, opening the back of the upper arm. Stretching all the way through our shoulders. If this is too much, feel free to just keep your arms long. Returning to those tips to practice presence throughout the class, we're going to keep 2 more things in mind. The second is that we won't rush through the poses, through the class. We're going to take our time to settle into the pose, to transition through the poses. Making sure that we're not focused on somewhere else we have to be, but the present moment. And lastly, which I would say is the most powerful tool, is the breath. We're going to make it a breathing practice, always using our breath as an anchor to return to. Taking a deep breath in through the nose, exhale it all through the mouth. Placing your hands onto the mat, coming onto all 4s. Maybe we separate our knees just slightly. We're going to make big circles around our knees with our hips. So maybe there's somewhere that feels best and we want to keep it a little longer. Feel free to move this, make this movement your own. A couple more times. And the other side, taking big circles around your knees with your hips. Last one. Returning through center, tabletop position. Couple rounds of cat-cows as we inhale. We open the chest, looking up. And as we exhale, pushing through our hands, tucking our chin, tucking our tailbone in. Continue at your own pace for a couple more rounds, using your breath to guide the movement. You can either continue through cat-cows or begin to play with what we call in yoga spinal roll. So feeling like the waves of the back, making it a smooth movement as we begin to round and open. And slowly return back through center, tabletop position, placing our toes onto the mat, pressing our hips up, downward facing dog. For this first down dog, separate your feet mat width apart. Pushing through the hands, finding a long spine, bending the knees as needed, pressing the heels towards the ground. Bending one knee, pressing the opposite heel towards the ground, opening that back of the leg, and alternate legs. So bend the other knee as you lengthen the opposite leg, reaching the heel towards the ground. Continue a couple more times. Keeping the length of the spine, so the sits bones are reaching up. Slowly finding stillness, pressing both heels towards the ground. And walking our hands back towards our feet. Passing all the weight towards our feet, making sure the weight is even through our foot, not only onto our heels. Grabbing opposite elbow, letting our torso hang heavy. Feeling almost as if all the weight were pouring down through the crown of the head. And maybe we sway from side to side, releasing any tension. Maybe our knees are bent, or maybe we begin to lengthen them if we're already a little more open. Slowly coming back through center, letting go of the elbows, rolling up one vertebrae at a time. Feeling each vertebrae as it opens and comes back to its neutral position as we roll up. Last thing that comes up is the head. Shoulders roll back, chin parallel to the mat, and go back down. Chin tucking in towards the chest. One vertebrae at a time, lowering all the way down. We'll do this one more time. As we reach down towards the mat and we roll back up. The last thing that comes up is the head, feeling the weight of the head. When we reach all the way up, finding length through the crown of the head, and come back down. We'll all meet in that ragdoll position. Letting our torso hang heavy. Walking our hands back into downward facing dog. This time bringing our feet hip width apart. Finding length through the sits bones. And placing our knees onto the ground, coming back into tabletop position. As we find a neutral spine, we'll place the right hand behind our head. As we inhale, this is going to be a dynamic movement. So as we inhale, we're going to open the chest up, reaching the left hip crease back so the hips stay neutral. Feeling the ribs wrap around, opening the heart. And as we exhale, we're going to reach the elbow towards the wrist, rounding the upper back, or maybe the mid-arm. Inhale, open, 2 more times. Exhale, close. On this last one, we're going to inhale, open the arm, open the chest. Reach the right arm up as we open the heart, pushing through the left hand against the mat. And we're going to thread the right arm under the left, placing the back of the shoulder onto the mat. Relaxing the side of the head. Again, reaching that right hip crease back, making sure that our hips stay even. Relaxing the head here. Feeling the opening of the shoulder, the twist in the spine. returning to that breath we first initiated with. And press through the left hand, coming back through center, preparing to do the other side. Taking the left hand behind your head, opening the chest, reaching the left elbow up towards the ceiling, and closing, contracting as the left elbow reaches towards the right arm. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Last one. Taking the left elbow towards the right arm, reaching the elbow up. Once again, opening the hand, reaching the left hand up towards the ceiling. As we push through the right hand, twisting through the thoracic spine, that mid-spine. Left hip crease reaches back. Sorry, right, yeah. And we'll thread the left arm under the right, placing the back of the shoulder onto the mat, the side of the head. Maybe this arm stays in front of us to support the right arm, or maybe you wrap it behind you if it feels nice. Taking deep breaths in here, not thinking of where we're going next. Returning to that intention of staying present through the breath. And take the right hand back down, pressing yourself back through tabletop. Placing your toes onto the mat. Shift the hips up, downward facing dog. Bending one knee, the other. And slowly finding stillness in our down dog. Reaching the right foot up towards the ceiling. Keeping our hips squared, bringing the right knee into the nose, placing the foot between your hands. Lowering the back knee, the back of the foot. Lifting the torso up, placing both hands onto our hips. We're going to find length through the crown of the head as we shift the hips forward, tilting both sits bones looking up. And we're going to press both hands as we interlace our hands, press the thigh away from us, maybe finding even a deeper opening as we push the thigh away. And slowly from here, we're going to reach the right arm back as we twist open. Maybe we look back towards that right hand, left arm forward, twisting through that thoracic spine. Finding again that lift through the crown of the head. And slowly windmill both hands down inside of the right foot. Wiggling that right foot maybe to the edge of the mat. Shifting the hips forward into lizard. Feel free to stay here. If not, we're going to reach the right arm forward and back, opening the chest, opening the heart. The hip can open, keeping the same direction as the toes. And slowly come back through center, placing the foot back onto the mat, walking both hands towards the left corner of the mat. Keeping the hips centered. And walking the hands back in, bringing the foot between both hands, placing the back toes onto the mat, lifting the back knee, step it back, downward facing dog. Other side. Lift the left foot up. Hips remain closed, bringing the left knee into the nose, and placing the foot between your hands, low lunge. If you can't take it as smoothly, just grab the ankle and wiggle it between your hands. Coming into a low lunge, shifting the hips forward, still keeping a long spine. Placing both hands against the thigh, pushing the thigh away from us, finding maybe a deeper stretch in the right frontal hip as we keep the spine long. Reaching the left arm back, right arm forward, twisting, maybe looking back if it feels right. And slowly windmilling our hands down inside of the left foot as we wiggle the left foot outside towards the left edge of the mat. Maybe the foot lifts off Maybe the whole foot remains onto the mat. What's important is that the knee is in the same line as the middle toe. And we'll reach the left arm up and around, opening the heart. Slowly bringing that left hand back down, walking the hands towards the right corner of the mat. Both sides of the torso are long and even. Hips remain low and centered. Inhale. And walk your hands back in, bringing the left foot between your hands, placing the back toe, stepping it back, downward facing dog. So we're going to add on to this. We're going to do this a couple more times, adding on to it. Lift the right leg up. This time, open the hip, bend the knee, reaching the heel towards the butt. Feeling that good feeling in the frontal right hip. We're going to make 3 big beach ball circles with the right knee. Opening the hip, bringing movement towards the joint. Last one. And we'll reach your right knee towards the nose. Hold and place the foot between your hands. Placing the back knee onto the mat, the back of the foot. Once again, low lunge. This time reaching both arms up. Inhale. Placing the right hand onto the right hip, reaching the left hand towards the right. Maybe you place the right hand onto the mat if that feels right. Finding a long left side of the body. Coming back through center, both hands long. Placing both hands onto the mat, lengthening the front leg, half splits. Breathe as you reach the right hip crease back, keeping the hips squared, and the chest pulls you forward, keeping a long spine. That might mean that you won't lower as much, and that's fine. Bending your knee once again. Long spine. Looking for the back, you can either stay here or you can look for the back foot, bending the back knee, pulling the foot towards your glute. Opening that left quad. Keeping the hips shifting forward, belly button in and up. And let go of the foot. Reaching both hands up. Once again, twisting towards the right. Reaching the right arm back. Maybe looking back. And lower both hands onto the mat instead of the right foot. Walking the right foot out towards the right edge of the mat. Again, choosing whatever feels right for you today, either the foot fully planted, meaning the hip is closed, or opening the hip, lifting the foot. From here, feel free to stay here or lower onto your forearms. Taking a couple deep breaths in here. Feeling as the hips reach towards the ground and they're hanging heavy. And slowly place down your hands onto the mat. Wiggling your right foot between both hands, placing the back toes onto the mat, lifting the back knee. Step it back either directly into down dog or go through your vinyasa, stepping it back into plank. We'll all meet in down dog. Chaturanga, upward facing dog, downward facing dog. Other side, reaching the left foot up, the left leg up, opening the hip, bending the knee. Feeling that opening in the left frontal hip. Both sides of the torso are still neutral. There's the same amount of weight on the left hand as the right. And 3 big beach ball circles with the left knee. Opening and closing that hip joint. Last one, reaching the left knee into the nose, shifting forward as you place the foot between your hands. Back foot on the back knee onto the mat, lifting the arms up, low lunge. The armpit is as if it wanted to close. So strong upper back. placing the left hand onto the hip, reaching the right arm towards the left. Maybe if you tried placing the right hand onto the mat, you'll try on this side as well. Lengthening the right side of the body. Maybe we look up. And come back through center. Placing both hands onto the mat, lengthening the front leg. Half splits. Pushing maybe through the heel to lengthen that left back of the leg even more. Finding long spine. Maybe that means that we won't lower as much, and that's totally fine, but we want to prioritize that length in the leg and the spine. And slowly bend that left leg once again, coming into a low lunge. Either staying here or reaching for the back foot with both hands. Pressing the right heel into our right glute, opening that right quad. Heart is lifting. We're not crouching to get the foot. Slowly letting go of the knee, reaching both arms up. Twisting open towards the left, reaching the left arm back, right arm forward. Maybe we look back if it's available. 2 more breaths here. And windmill your hands back down inside of the left foot. Preparing for lizard, so wiggling that left foot towards the edge of the mat. And maybe we stay here on our hands, or maybe we can lower onto one forearm, or maybe even both. Again, play around with that hip, what feels best for you, if closed or open. Get curious with your body. And slowly place your hands back onto the mat, wiggling the left foot between both hands. Either take your vinyasa or step it back into downward facing dog. We'll all meet in downward facing dog. Last round of these, adding on to it. Lift the right leg up, open the hip, bend the knee. Either stay here or shift your shoulders over your wrists. Letting the right foot step behind you, wild thing. Opening the chest, lifting the heart up, hips up. And come back through center, placing the right hand onto the mat, bringing the right knee into the nose. Take it into low lunge. Placing the back knee, the back of the foot, lengthen the torso up. Lowering the hands onto the mat, lengthening the right leg, half splits. Maybe we're a little warmer. Now we can push through the heels, all toes looking up, lengthening that right back of the leg even deeper. And bend the right leg, walking the hands back forward. This time, keeping your hands here, lengthen the right arm up. Reaching the right hip crease back, looking up. And place the right hand inside of the right leg, wiggling the foot back again into lizard. So a couple options here. If you didn't want to go down, feel free to stay here on your hands. If you did go down, you can come back onto your forearms. And from here, we're going to look for our back foot. If you're on your hands, you can also look for your back foot. So feel free to do whatever option you want. So I'm going to lower onto my forearms, bending the back leg, reaching for the back foot, making sure I'm twisting open. So I'm opening that right hip. My heart is looking up. I'm not feeling the stretch in my knee, right? I'm feeling it in the hips and the quads, feeling it in the flesh of the muscle, not in the joints. And slowly let go. Placing, if you're on your forearms, placing both forearms back onto the mat, if not your hands. And we're going to place, wherever you are, we're going to place the back toes onto the mat, lifting the back knee, making it a little deeper. Placing both hands, if you're on your forearms, onto the mat, walking both hands towards the left corner of the mat, lengthening the torso as long as possible. Right side maybe a little longer as it usually tends to close. And walk your hands back in, placing the foot between both hands. Step it back either into down dog or plank pose to go through your vinyasa. Make it as smooth as possible. We're in no rush. Lifting the left foot up this time. Opening the hip, bending the knee. Shifting, if we're taking wild thing, we're going to shift our shoulders over our wrists. If not, remain where you are. And letting the left foot step behind us as we reach the left arm up and around, lifting the heart, lifting the hips, opening the whole frontal side of the body. And slowly come back, placing the left hand, bring the left knee directly into our nose, placing the foot between your hands, low lunge. We'll all meet in low lunge. Making sure that our hips are shifting forward, but we're not splurging out. There's still a rebound and a length through the spine. Hips are closed, we're not open. Arms are long. And lower your hands down. Without moving the foot, lengthen the leg. Reaching the left hip crease back, finding length through the crown of the head. Pressing through the heel, active left leg. 2 more breaths. And bend the left leg, walking your hands forward. And reach the left arm up, twisting open. Making sure that the left knee is not splurging out, it's still neutral. The left hip crease is reaching back, keeping the hips squared. Maybe we look up. We're not collapsing in the right shoulder. We're pushing against the right hand, finding strength through the upper back. And lower the left hand down inside of the left leg, shifting the hips forward, letting the hips hang heavy. Now you either stay here or lower onto your forearms. Whatever option you took on one side, you'll take on this side. And if you looked for your back leg, feel free to do so now. Opening the heart, grabbing the foot through the outer edge of the foot, letting the left hip open, the chest looking up. It's fine if you're doing this on your hand. That's also an option. Slowly letting go of the back foot, placing the left forearm back onto the mat or the left hand, placing the back toes, lifting the back knee, letting the hips stay heavy, finding that deeper stretch in the hips, in the frontal hips, in the left back of the leg. And slowly come back onto your hands if you were not there, walking both hands towards the right corner of the mat. Probably they'll go out of the mat, that's fine. Reaching the left hand a little farther so both sides of the torso are equal lengths. And walk the hands back in, wiggling the left foot between both hands. Either taking your vinyasa or we'll meet in downward facing dog. From down dog, we're going to shift 5 times as we inhale, coming into plank, shifting our shoulders over our wrists, finding a nice plank, settling in our plank briefly, and shifting back as we exhale, making it a dynamic movement. 4 more times. Inhale, plank, not letting our hips sink, pushing through both hands, and shift back, reaching the heels down, finding length through the spine. 3 more. On the last one, we'll all meet in plank pose. From plank, we're going to lower onto our forearms into forearm plank. We can either interlace our hands together or keep them separate as we press our hands against the mat, not letting our chest sink or hips sink. Hold for 2 more breaths. And And lower our hips down, Sphinx pose, keeping our forearms onto the mat, maybe bringing the elbows a little closer into our low ribs as we lift the heart through the crown of the head, shoulders rolling back. Hold here. Slowly placing your toes back onto the mat, lifting your hips back up, forearm plank. Pushing those forearms against the mat. Maybe your hands are interlaced if that helps us. 2 more breaths. And slowly lowering the hips back down. 5 more breaths here, Sphinx pose. Making sure our shoulders are rolling back. We're finding length through the tailbone so we're not crunching our low back. And the backs of the toes are pressing down against the mat. And let's lower our forehead back down onto the mat. Releasing our forearms, interlacing our hands behind our back. Pressing through the big toes against the mat. We're going to inhale, lift the heart up, almost as if our hands were pulling us back and up. And the crown of the head up towards the ceiling, finding length through each vertebrae. And now lift the legs up, keeping them parallel. Arms reach back. 1 more breath. And lower down. Placing your hands next to your chest. Keeping your elbows tucked in, either coming up into cobra, if that's what feels right, or upward facing dog. Inhale, cobra, either staying there or a full up dog. Flipping the feet, downward facing dog. Inhale, and as you exhale, step the feet forward into forward fold. Inhale, lengthen through the spine. As you exhale, forward fold. Coming all the way up to standing. Hands in front of the heart. We're going to come through 1 round of Surya Namaskar A, sun salutation. So feel free to do it at your own pace. I'm going to break it down step by step. Inhale, arms up. As you exhale, swan dive, the heart leads down, forward fold. Shifting the hips over the heels. Inhale, lengthen through the spine, lengthen the legs, lift to the heart. Exhale, plant the hands next to the feet, step it back, plank pose. Chaturanga. Upward facing dog, downward facing dog. 5 full rounds of breath here. On the next exhale, bend the knees, look forward, step or hop towards the front of the mat. Inhale, lengthen through the spine. As you exhale, forward fold. Come all the way up to standing. Hands in front of the heart. Inhale, Utkatasana chair pose. Either feet together, so toes touching, or hip width apart. Whatever feels best. Utkatasana chair pose. Knees are behind the toes, so if you look down, you can see the toes. Arms long. Hold 1 more breath. And on the exhale, you're going to lengthen your legs, reaching the arms back. Maybe coming onto your tiptoes if you feel stable. To like a diver's pose. Hold. And come back, chair pose. This time we're going to reach our arms behind us, interlacing our hands, opening the shoulders, lifting the heart, and forward fold. Letting the arms hang heavy overhead. If this is too close, it's nice to grab a towel so we can separate our hands a little. And maybe we'll separate our feet if the feet closes too much. And letting go of our interlaced hands, placing both hands onto the mat. Inhale, lengthen through the spine. As you exhale, place the hands down. We're gonna reach the right arm up in the forward fold, bending the left leg, lengthening the right. Maybe we look up. Pushing through that left hand, feeling the opening in the right leg. Other side, placing the right hand down, bending the right leg, lengthening the left. Reaching that right hip crease back, making sure the hips are squared. And slowly place both hands down, flowing all the way back into down dog. So inhale, lengthen through the spine. Exhale, plant the hands onto the mat, step it back or hop back into plank, chaturanga, up dog, downward facing dog. Inhale, bring the right knee into the nose, placing the foot between your hands. Placing the back knee onto the mat, keeping the toes onto the mat, lifting the torso up. Finding stability, we're gonna push the feet away from the mat, lifting the back knee. Hold. Bending the back knee slightly to find squared hips, leveled hips, and from there you can begin to lengthen if it feels right. Reaching the right arm back, twisting open, walking the right hand along the back leg. Left side of the body long. And coming back through center. Inhale, lengthen the right leg. Placing both hands on the hips, bring the back foot a little closer. Finding squared hips, lifting the heart, taking the heart towards the right leg. Taking our forehead towards that right leg as the right hip crease reaches back. If this is too much, you don't have to lower as much, or you can use blocks as well. Now, listen carefully for this transition. We're gonna keep our hands where they are, or if they're not on the mat, we're gonna bend our knees, our right knee, taking our hands onto the mat. So into like a runner's lunge. Now we're gonna walk both hands inside of the right foot, shifting towards the side of the mat, coming into Skandasana. So placing the whole right foot onto the mat as the right knee looks at a diagonal. I'll do it the other side so you guys can see. There we go. So the left leg is looking up. The foot is looking up. Maybe we're on our toes. Maybe the whole foot doesn't reach the mat. That's fine. From here, lengthen the right arm down. Reach the left arm up, opening the heart. I'm doing it on the other side, just so you guys can see better. And come back through center, walking your hands back into that runner's lunge. Stepping it back either into plank or downward facing dog. Preparing for the other side. Reaching the left foot up, bringing the left knee into the nose, slowly and carefully placing it as gracefully as possible between your hands. Placing the back knee down, keeping the toes onto the mat, as we're only gonna briefly be here. Lengthening the arms, finding stability. If we feel too unstable, we can place our hands onto the mat, that's fine. Lengthening the back leg, coming into crescent lunge. Again, keeping a slight bend in the back knee to find squared hips, long arms. Inhale, and as you exhale, twist open, reaching the left hand back. Walking the left hand along the right leg, reaching the right arm back, opening that right side of the body. And come back through center. Keep the bend in the knee. Inhale, lengthen the front leg. Bringing the back foot a little closer for pyramid. Placing the back foot onto the mat. Both hips are looking forward. Hips are squared. Finding a long spine. Lowering down our heart towards our left leg. And slowly we're gonna bend that left leg, reaching both hands towards the mat. Walking our hands inside of the left foot, shifting our body to face the side of the mat. Maybe our whole foot comes down onto the mat. Maybe we're on our toes, that's fine. The right foot is looking up, opening that back side of the right leg. Left arm inside of the left leg, right arm reaches up. It's like a twist. You're opening the chest almost as if it wanted to look at the ceiling. And slowly lowering that right hand back down, bringing our hands back to center the left foot into a runner's lunge, stepping it back either through your vinyasa or meeting in down dog. We all meet in downward facing dog. Separating your feet around mat width apart, planting the heels onto the mat, we're going to walk our hands back, reaching our sits bones down. The feet will naturally open to follow the same line as the knees, coming into Malasana, yogi squat. Again, similarly to Skandasana, we might not be able to place our whole foot down. That's fine. You can come onto your tiptoes or place a towel under your heels to support your heels. Bringing your hands in front of your heart, pushing your elbows against the knees to find length through the spine. Opening the hips a little deeper. Crown of the head lifts. We're not just hanging on into the hip joints. There's some rebound and length through the crown of the head. Slowly, with control, we're going to come onto our sits bones, coming into Navasana as we reach our legs up. So, a couple options here. If this is we're going to hold it for a couple breaths. If this is too much, you can place the hands behind your knees to support it. Priority is to keep a long spine. If we're rounding our low back and putting all the weight in our low back, we're doing it wrong. So, option 1, option 2, and if you want to play around with lengthening both legs, feel free to do so, making sure that the spine doesn't round. 3 more breaths. You can also support it by placing your hands behind you. That's really option 1. And lower down. Placing once again your feet around mat width apart, preparing once again to come into Malasana. So that yogi squat, pushing ourselves up. Knees are in the same direction as the feet. But this time we're going to do a yin Malasana. So there's going to be little to no effort as we let the torso hang heavy in front of us, reaching our hands forward, letting the hips sink back, and just hanging out here for a couple of breaths, feeling the difference between both of these. For a yin Malasana, if you don't reach your heels down, it's nice to have support from a towel or something similar, maybe blocks. Maybe letting go of everything, of all the work through the mouth as we inhale through the nose. Exhale, big exhale through the mouth. 1 more time. Inhale through the nose. Big exhale through the mouth. Slowly walking your hands back in. Placing your knees onto the mat, coming into a tabletop position, just briefly. If we don't have a mat that supports our knees well, or we have sensitive knees, you can always support it with a blanket, a pillow, anything that gives it a little comfort. Now from this tabletop, we're going to keep our hips over our knees as much as possible. We're going to walk our hands out, letting our heart melt onto the mat. And doing as the pose indicates, the name of the pose is heart melting pose. So letting our heart melt, trying not to resist it, feeling the deep opening in the shoulders, the chest. If this is too much, you can walk your hands a little forward, making the angle a little less deep. 2 more breaths. Slowly walking our hands back. Bones towards our heels, child's pose. Maybe bringing our hands, legs closing a little after a deep opening. Letting our torso melt over our legs as our sits bones reach towards the heel. And slowly, gently, being kind with ourselves, rolling up, bringing our legs around into Dandasana. So both legs long. This is an active pose. We're not just sitting and resting here. Our legs are long, our toes are looking up. There's a slight tilt in the pelvis to keep a long spine. For many, this is already a lot for the backs of the legs. For those who can go a little deeper, try to walk your hands forward. Keeping the long spine, that's why we're walking them forward, not just hinging forward. I want you to prioritize the long spine. Shoulders are still rolling back. You're probably not going to go as low as you usually do if you just bend forward, fold forward. And slowly coming back up, bringing the right foot inside of the left leg for Janu Shirshasana. Making sure both sits bones are in the ground. We're bringing it close in, but we're not just jamming it in there if the knee is going to go up and we're going to lose the base of the pose. We want both sits bones down, a long spine, the knee is out to the side. We'll shift our torso towards the left leg and lower down. If we have a strap, it's useful for these forward folds so you can keep that long spine, and it's almost as if you're bringing the foot towards you, not you towards the foot. Hello, Ramona. Now, slowly lifting up, lengthening the right leg, bringing the left foot inside of the right thigh. Again, finding that long spine, both sits bones grounded, shifting forward towards the right leg and folding forward. Keeping a long spine. We want to try not to round as the upper back. The upper back remains long and open, the chest is open, the shoulders rolling back. And coming all the way back up. This time we're going to open both legs towards the side for a wide angle pose. All toes are looking up. We don't need to go very wide if our knees are going to be tucked in or we're going to be rolling out. We're going to go wide enough so we can feel both sits bones, keep a long spine. If we're going super wide, but we're hunching our back, then there's no purpose. So all toes are looking up, and we'll walk our hands forward. Again, this might be enough for many, so you just keep it here. Maybe your hands come behind you, finding a long spine, open heart. If not, you can look to fold forward. I like to tent my hands because it almost reminds me of keeping a longer spine, almost as the crown of the head were leading me forward. Still feeling the sits bones onto the ground. 2 more breaths. And come back up. Bringing the right leg, bending the right leg in front of us. We're going to take the left leg over the right. If this is too much and our knees are coming all the way up and we feel more tense than we should, feel free to lengthen the bottom leg. If not, both legs are bent. Heels are reaching towards the outside of our hips. And we're going to fold forward. Relaxing the torso over our knees. Letting the head hang heavy. Even if we don't reach our legs, we're still hanging heavy. We're not pushing ourselves down. This is supposed to feel good. Stay present. We're not aiming for a certain pose, certain way we want to look like. We're just here with what we have right now. And slowly coming all the way back up. Keeping the legs as they are. Reaching the right arm over our head, bending the elbow. So the elbow should be in line almost with the head. Feel free to stay here. If not, you can reach for the right hand behind you with the left hand. If this is too much, you can grab the t-shirt behind you or a towel, or just bend the right elbow, and that's it. Hold for 3 more breaths. And let it go. Other side. So switching legs, taking the left leg under, right leg over. Again, if you lengthen the bottom leg, feel free to do that as well on this side. Reaching the left arm over your head, bending the elbow. Maybe you stay here, pushing the elbow, just giving it little pulses to open this back of the arm. And maybe reach behind you. If we're reaching behind and we're grabbing our hands, let's make sure that we're not rounding our back to grab the hands. The whole purpose of this pose is to find length, opening through the upper body, opening through the arms, the shoulders. So we don't want to lose that just to grab our hands. Finding length, both sits bones grounded. 1 more breath. And release down. We did it the opposite on the other side, but it's fine. We're going to place our hands in front of us and just walk it forward, relaxing, melting over our legs. And slowly coming back up, lengthening the legs, maybe wiggling them out. And we're going to all meet on our backs. Honor the mat. Placing our feet onto the mat. Heels close to our butt, but not jamming them in. Legs hip width apart, arms next to the torso. We're going to do 3 heart openers, 3 back bends. I'm going to do first 2 bridges and the third one a wheel. So feel free to do all bridges, all wheels, whatever feels right. Hands next to the torso, feet bringing them close into the butt, hip width apart, pressing our arms against the floor, shifting the hips up, interlacing our hands under us as we wiggle the shoulders under the chest, opening the heart. Pushing the heels forward, the chest into the roof of the mouth and the hips up. Making sure our legs remain parallel, we're not splurging them out. Opening the heart. 2 more breaths. And on the next exhale, release down. 1 more time. Inhale, lifting the hips up towards the ceiling, pushing the arms against the floor, reaching the hips high up and the chest towards the roof of the mouth. 2 more breaths. And release down whenever you're ready. Feel free to just hang out or take the 3rd back bend as you wish. I'm gonna take a full wheel with my hands next to my ears, elbows tucked in, pressing my hands against the mat, placing the crown of my head onto the mat, chaturanga arms, and push myself all the way up into wheel. As I push my heart back, bring my shoulders over my wrists, making sure my arms are completely straight. 3 more breaths. Again, imagine you have a block between your thighs so your knees aren't splurging out towards the side. And release down slowly the same way you came up. Bringing your knees into your chest, rolling from side to side, massaging your low back. Opening your arms in a T, releasing the knees towards the right, looking towards the left. Releasing everything. Letting yourself melt into this pose. Other side. Bringing your knees through center, releasing your knees towards the left, looking towards the right. Coming back through center, lengthening your legs forward, bringing your hands next to your torso, settling to the last pose, Shavasana, as we take 3 deep breaths in through the nose and release everything through the mouth. 2 more times, sighing it out through the mouth. Settling here. Relaxing completely as you melt your body towards the mat. Slowly bringing your knees back into your chest, keeping your eyes closed, taking it step by step. Coming onto your right side whenever you're ready. Feel free to stay longer in Shavasana if that's also what's right for you right now. And pushing yourself all the way up into seated, facing forward, keeping your eyes closed, long spine. Bringing your hands in front of your heart, bowing down in gratitude. Namaste. Hope you enjoyed and see you in the next class.